between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. The latest being that the NASA affiliate parties are coming back on fold and to support that pact. We shall be trying to talk about that and what it means for democracy here in Kenya and across the continent of Africa. If it has ever worked, political cooperation, has it worked? Has it failed? Where has it worked? Where has it failed? We shall be speaking to Professor Israel Kodiaga, the regional director of Southern Delta, as well as lawyer Kakai Kissinger. They will be with me tonight to shed more light, to give us their perspectives on these issues. So be sure to join us later on. Right, Rex Tillerson has been fired as United States Secretary of State just hours after completing a four-nation African tour. U.S. President Donald Trump sacked Tillerson, replacing him with the director of the CIA, Mike Pompeo. The shake-up moments after Tillerson's incomplete tour in Africa also questions the status of President Trump's administration. Where are they heading? Fatia Mohamed Noor has more.
U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has been replaced with current CIA Director Mike Pompeo a day after he left his African tour prematurely. President Trump confirmed the reports on firing Tillerson on Twitter. The tweet read, and I quote, "Mike Pompeo, director of the CIA, will become our new Secretary of State. He will do a fantastic job. Thank you to Rex Tillerson for his service. Gina Haspel will become the new director of the CIA and the first woman so chosen. Congratulations to all." According to CNN, President Trump had asked Tillerson to step down from his current position last Friday. That was the same day he landed in Kenya after meeting AU officials in Ethiopia. Tillerson then cancelled his scheduled Saturday activities in Kenya, with state officials saying the Secretary of State had fallen ill. President Trump thanked Tillerson for his service, but also pointed out some of the disagreements they had. According to U.S. media, Trump wanted to have a new team in place before talks between the administration and North Korea began, making Tillerson the 15th person on the Trump administration fired since President Trump took office. Tillerson, a former top executive for the energy giant Exxon, took office on February 1, 2017. Rex Tillerson left Kenya Monday morning and made brief stopovers in Chad and Nigeria. His trip was cut short to allegedly attend to emergencies back at home, only for the world to learn of the fresh fallout in the Trump administration a few hours after Tillerson landed back to Washington. Fatia Mohamed Noor, KTN News.
Back on the continent, South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has fired his finance minister and a senior military official on a UN blacklist in a presidential decree. The decree, read on state radio late on Monday, gave no reason for the decision to replace Finance Minister Stephen Dio Dow with Salvatore Garang Mabiordit, who is from Kiir's northern home area of Warap. Dow is from Upper Nile. Lieutenant General Mariel Chanwang Yol Mangok was dismissed from this post as Assistant Chief of the Defense Forces, also without explanation. Mangok was once the head of Kiir's presidential guard, is among 6 rival generals that the UN Security Council blacklisted for fueling the ongoing conflict and contributing to the devastating humanitarian crisis in South Sudan in 2015. South Sudan slid into civil war in December 2013 when a political crisis triggered fighting between forces loyal to Kiir and rebels allied to his former deputy, Riek Machar. To South Africa now, where the country's Home Affairs Minister, Malusi Gigaba, appeared before a parliamentary committee to answer questions about graft at the state electricity monopoly linked to the controversial Gupta family, who had close ties to former President Jacob Zuma. This is part of what transpired earlier today.
I would expect, when the same family that's now been shown to be controversial, constantly in the news, such a lot of skeletons coming out of the closet, and not small Anyana skeletons, we're talking about big skeletons, that I would raise a red flag. Minister Gigaba, you never raised a red flag. Why not? Why were you comfortable with this if nobody else in the country was?
But remember that I was not involved in deciding who gets what contract where. I was not. I was a minister.
The government of Rwanda says that it is pleased by the growing efforts by the new regime in France to mend the troubled relations between Kigali and Paris. Speaking at a press conference earlier today, Rwanda's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Louise Mushikiwabo, who also serves as a government spokesperson, said her government appreciates the level of commitment on the part of the new French administration under President Macron to mend relations between the two countries. Our Kigali-based reporter Eugene Anangwe was at the press conference for us and now reports.
Now, the press conference really did focus on an array of issues, and of course one of them was an update on the forthcoming extraordinary meeting of African Union heads of state that will be taking place right here in Rwanda from the 20th of this month. Now, the focus here will be on the launch of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The Foreign Affairs Minister taking time to explain the benefits of having such a meeting taking place right here in Rwanda, not just for Rwanda, but for the entire continent.
Having a continental free trade area is a very big deal. We as a country, Rwanda, gain a lot in terms of trade, in terms of tourism, in terms of investment. And so everybody gains in this. And Rwanda, of course, has its own share of benefit in an integrated Africa. There is no question about it. You know, our economies will benefit, the statistics are there, and, you know, it's better for our country and other countries to face some of the important challenges on the continent and globally together.
Now, the refugees issue did not miss out on this particular press conference, with Rwanda's Foreign Affairs Minister reiterating Rwanda's open door policy for refugees or immigrants from whichever part of the world seeking refuge from their countries. And she did insist that this issue, much as Rwanda is out to help, is indeed a complex one, remembering or bearing in mind that just last week over 2,500 refugees from Burundi crossed into Rwanda, leaving or fleeing their refugee camps in DRC for fear of being repatriated. This has actually also come in the wake of violent protests by DRC refugees here in Rwanda over a shortage of food rations, and bringing up the question of whether Rwanda is actually capable of hosting even more refugees with this kind of incidents taking place here.
We just had to keep our border open and try and let them in, and we have a difficulty with that group as well, because we found out this is a group with some, should I say, strange religious beliefs, a group that does not believe in being registered, that does not believe in anything technology. Therefore, we cannot get biometric registration. How do you enter somebody's country without being known? So these are very complex issues, but it does not take away the fact that as a country, we are very open and we're trying to help our neighbors. However, it's also clear that if you cannot go by the law of this country, it will be very difficult for anybody to stay in this country.
Good news there for Rwandans as far as the Rwanda-France ties are concerned. Let's now cross over to Kampala, Uganda, where our correspondent Solomon Saranja has details of what is making headlines there.
Well, a very good evening from the capital, Kampala. We're closely following the developing story here in Uganda about the divided political circles, be it the National Resistance Movement Party, which is actually the party in power, and the opposition. Now, you have, for example, in the NRM party, the Speaker of the August Assembly, Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga, taking on the State Minister for Lands, Persis Namuganza. You also have the opposition sharply divided between Ssemujju Ngande, who is the spokesperson for the Forum for Democratic Change, taking on the president of the Forum for Democratic Change. Now, where is the politics taking this country. You also have division within the security circles where you had the former Inspector General Police, General Kale Kaihura, taking on the former Security Minister, Henry Tumukunde, and yet the president was just watching. Let me bring in critical thinker and journalist Samson Kasumba to put this in perspective. Thanks so much for joining us, Samson. Let's start with the divisions within the political circles. What do you make of them?
I think, first of all, Uganda's politics, unlike, in a sense, Kenya's politics, ours is a cutthroat politics. It is a politics of the winner takes it all. It is a politics of do or die. Because political victories decide a lot in this country. That's why there can never be consensus on anything. There isn't anything bipartisan in this country. I scarcely can find anything that is bipartisan. That's why Parliament has also dropped in quality of debate, because it is caucus politics. You don't go to the floor of Parliament to convince anybody, because people take their positions and will die for them. I was speaking to a member of Parliament after Uhuru Kenyatta, President of Kenya, and Raila Odinga were in the same room. I asked him whether that is possible here. He said the moment retired Colonel Kizza Besigye goes to meet President Yoweri Museveni in the State House or wherever he meets him, he said, we will go to his house and ransack it. We can't allow that to happen. And I think I can understand this, because so many politicians have built careers on feuds. So if the feuds go, careers go down.
So you're saying that the only way that the politics of this country can stand is when there is divisions?
Precisely. If President Yoweri Museveni and retired Colonel Kizza Besigye reached an understanding, do you know how many political careers would go down? So they won't allow them to go down. People have gone to Parliament because of the feud. So if the feud goes away, what happens? Now, you can understand a lot of people and a lot of businesses have been built on the feud in police.
Yeah.
And I think the police budget has grown on the feud between President Yoweri Museveni and retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. People have made money on that feud.
All right, so
it's business.
Let's bring in, before we get to the security circles, let's go politics. Let's look at the parties. Uganda runs on a multi-party system. You have NRM, sharply divided. You have the Secretary General of the National Resistance Movement Party, Kasule Lumumba, fighting publicly on media with the chairperson of the Electoral Commission of the NRM. These are two big wigs. They are fighting. You have the opposition equally fighting. They don't have any clean hands. Where does this leave political parties within Uganda, and indeed at a wider perspective for Africa?
I think, first of all, to begin with, some of the persons in charge of key positions in political parties in this country can only be in charge of those positions of those parties only in Uganda and nowhere in East Africa. I mean, look at some of them. These persons would never be anywhere in charge of a political party in a serious country. That's why you see sort of very, very petty bickering between persons in charge of very serious institutions. And I think that, I mean, you look at parties in this country, I think largely FDC would collapse as a party as soon as President Yoweri Museveni leaves power, because their major motive is getting rid of President Yoweri Museveni. NRM will go as long as President Yoweri Museveni is gone, because I don't know that they have anything they stand for apart from keeping Yoweri Museveni in power.
And the question is, the president just keeps watching, because this is the NRM chairperson. So if you see some bickerings within the political party itself, you want to come in and solve that, and yet he takes a backseat.
I'm not so sure he does not benefit from these squabbles and bickerings. I think that if he doesn't fuel them, then he loves them because he benefits from them. I think he loves people reporting each other to himself.
Why would you think so?
Because there's no reason why you watch something detrimental when you have all the solutions. Yes. Why would you allow a house to burn when you have a fire brigade and you're sitting in it?
All right, let's talk about the opposition. You have Odonga Oto taking on Dr. Kizza Besigye. You're not consulting us. We don't like your way of doing things. You sort of see this bickering again. Within the opposition, it's not any safe.
I'm not so sure Odonga Oto knows where he stands on many things. And depends on who you talk to. Some will tell you Odonga Oto is not genuinely opposition. He may, and I'm saying he may, be here and there, depending on what time of the day you're talking about.
And does that affect political party growth in any way?
To be honest with you, Solomon, for you to be able to grow serious political parties, you can't grow them with poverty. I believe in the concept that in any case, wherever you go, for you to oppose anything, you have to be able to pay for the opposition. I come from the context of theology. Before you oppose the devil, you have to be able to die. So many opposition members of Uganda's politics do not have the finances to pay for opposing. Therefore, it makes them very easy to buy. I'm not so sure how many haven't been bought. There are theories that so many people post Yoweri Museveni in the day, picking money in the evening, depending on who you talk to.
Well, you have the divisions not only here in Uganda. I mean, even in Kenya, when you look at NASA, it's sharply divided right now. Miguna is saying that Raila Odinga betrayed them. You're looking at the other side also in the President Uhuru Kenyatta's camp. There equally people are being divided.
Where was Miguna that swearing?
So it looks like the divisions cut across the community.
But you see, you have to appreciate conflict resolution and conflict transformation. I think that it's very, very African. For us as Africans, even where we have divides, there have always been mechanisms of slaughtering goats, slaughtering chickens. We come together, bury the hatchet, and move on. We've always had the exchange of beads of blood to bring ourselves together. What happened to that Africa where we resolved anything? Even if there was a fight and your son killed my son, over a goat, over a chicken, we resolved the hatchet and moved on. What happened to that Africa?
Well, what happened to that Africa? Thank you so much, Samson Kasumba. Samson Kasumba is a critical thinker and journalist here in Uganda, putting in perspective for us the issues of divisions within the political parties, but across the circles, actually not only here in Uganda, but also across the region. This is Bottom Line.
Many thanks, Solomon Serwanja. The latest of what's happening in Uganda, bringing sharp focus there. The political rivalry between President Yoweri Museveni's National Resistance Movement and Kizza Besigye's Forum for Democratic Change, FDC. I shall be putting that question to my panelists later on what's happening in Kenya, if it has an impact on the political situation in Uganda. Now, in Arusha, Tanzania, the East African Legislative Assembly has resumed its sittings to discuss, among other issues, the report on the Central and Northern Corridor tour undertaken last month. The initial business of the House today was to swear in the new Kenya's new Cabinet Secretary for East African Cooperation, Peter Munya. The members also resumed debate and address of the chairperson of the EAC summit, that is President Yoweri Museveni, in January. Our correspondent, Rajab Hassan, is in Arusha and compiled the following for us.
Is the engine of a community. Without security, we can't do nothing.
One thing that His Excellency Museveni gave us as a duty as members of VIALA was, above all, leadership was a key factor in management and the good spirit of the growth of the community.
For sure, the speech by the President emphasized 4 key areas. 1, the spirit of oneness of Africa and how our cultures, our traditions are intertwined, and why, therefore, this integration process is not an alien concept.
You know, history is always a good teacher. We had the East African shilling, and there was an East African currency board. So basically, we were more integrated in 1963 than we are integrated now.
When you have these free movements, they actually can integrate the 6 countries that we have. The common market alone is enough to do it before we go to the monetary and eventually the political union. But the main problem is implementation. The main problem from my point of view is implementation. Implementation becomes a problem because the protocol is...
Let's cross borders west. Thousands took to the streets of Conakry in Guinea on Monday, protesting against the ongoing closure of public schools and calling for the resignation of President Alpha Conde. Tensions have been rising in the West African country following disputed local elections last month. Guinea's main opposition parties are calling for the publication of the results from the local elections, which allies of President Conde say they have won. In the district of Kaloum, in the center of Conakry, youth erected roadblocks and set tires on fire while police responded with tear gas and clubs. Protesters also called for public and schools to reopen following an ongoing teachers' strike that has crippled the education sector since last year. Talks between the country's president, Conde, and the teachers' union failed in February after teachers' union said they will not return to work as the government has failed to address their grievances of low pay and poor working conditions. Let's stay in the region. And an outbreak of Lassa fever, a viral hemorrhagic illness, has killed 110 people this year in Africa's most populous nation, Nigeria, in an unprecedented outbreak that has hit 18 of Nigeria's 36 states. That is according to the World Health Organization. Now, Lassa fever is mainly transmitted to humans via contact with food or household items contaminated with rodents, urine, or excrements. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control said there were 353 confirmed cases since the start of this year. You're watching Bottom Line Africa here on KTN News. Many thanks for staying with us. When we return after this